Welcome to The Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're tuning in today because, well, we are looking at something truly fascinating. To really appreciate the intense emotional heights of modern Filipino poetry, we actually need to look backwards first. We need to look at the structural foundations of the language itself. Today, we're going to explore how dry academic language rules literally become the scaffolding for raw, explosive human emotion. It's going to be a great journey.
All right, here is our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at structure and type of text, the meaning of words, fact versus opinion, spoken word poetry, figures of speech, and we'll wrap up with the overarching themes of poetry.
Let's start with Section 1, Structure and Type of Text.
Okay, let's dive into this. Before a poet can go breaking the rules, they really have to know the tools at their disposal. The standard academic curriculum clearly separates how we write based on our core purpose. So, on one side, we have narrative text. This includes things like poems, plays, and short stories. Basically, writing that's designed to tell a story, reveal character actions, and evoke deep feelings. Now, on the exact opposite side, we have informative text. Think essays and articles. This is expository stuff. Its entire job is just to deliver pure information and outline main ideas logically. A great writer knows exactly which vehicle they need to drive before they even put the key in the ignition.
Moving right along to Section 2, Meaning of Words.
Notice the stark split here between the literal and the emotional. Denotation is your formal dictionary definition. It's the strict, undisputed meaning of a word. No wiggle room. But connotation? Now that is the meaning derived from context, from a specific situation, and from emotion. It's the flavor or the vibe of the word. Keep this distinction in your back pocket, because playing with connotation, pushing words way past their literal dictionary definitions, is exactly what makes poetry so incredibly powerful.
Which brings us to Section 3, Fact or Opinion.
A fact is completely verifiable. It relies on reliable sources, hard dates, and the perspectives of experts. It stands up to heavy scrutiny. An opinion, however, is a personal reaction. It's a feeling, a stance, a totally subjective viewpoint. Now, you might be thinking that academic analysis relies entirely on verifiable facts to find the quote-unquote truth, and it does, but personal opinions and strong emotional reactions, those are the raw, driving forces behind art and self-expression.
Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 4, Spoken Word Poetry.
So what does this all mean? How do these rigid academic rules build into beautiful art? Well, spoken word poetry is a modern, highly performative form of poetry that completely transcends the printed page. Sometimes you'll hear it called slam poetry. It relies heavily on rhythm, facial expressions, hand gestures, and delivering this just incredibly raw emotion directly to a live audience. To understand how this works mechanically, we're looking at a fascinating 2025 academic journal study from the Kapalan College of Agriculture, Sciences, and Technology. These researchers analyzed 51 different Filipino spoken word pieces to see exactly how artists use the linguistic foundations we just covered to create captivating live art.
And that leads perfectly into Section 5, Figures of Speech in Poetry. The researchers combed through those 51 spoken word poems and found 4 really prominent figures of speech used again and again to bend literal reality and reveal deeper truths. We have pagtulad, or indirect comparison; pagwawengus, which is direct comparison; personification, the humanizing of objects; and finally, pagmamalabis, which is extreme exaggeration. Let's look at exactly how each of these function.
First up is pagtutulad, which translates to a simile. This is when you indirectly compare two entirely different concepts or things, typically using a connecting word. In Filipino, this is often the word parang, meaning like or as. It's a fantastic, reliable way to paint a vivid, instantly relatable picture in the listener's mind.
Just take a look at this quote drawn right from the study. Crying like a baby that needs to be rocked. Wow. By using that connecting word to compare the speaker's adult grief to a literal infant, the poet instantly evokes a deep, universally understood feeling of complete vulnerability and helplessness. It connects the literal to the emotional just flawlessly.
Next is pagwangus, or metaphor. Now, this is a direct comparison between two distinct things, but without those safe connecting words. You aren't saying something is like something else. You are boldly stating that it is that other thing. Removing the connecting word completely raises the emotional stakes and makes the imagery so much more forceful.
Look at the raw power of this line. You are the light, I am the dark. There's absolutely no like or as here.
It's a definitive, almost tragic contrast between two individuals. The poet is using these elemental, universal concepts, light and darkness, to basically force the audience to feel the severe imbalance in this relationship.
Then we have personification or personification. This is giving human characteristics, emotions, or actions to inanimate objects or abstract ideas. It's such a brilliantly clever technique because it essentially brings the non-living environment to life. It forces the scenery itself to mirror the narrator's intense feelings.
I absolutely love this modern example from the study. The 3 dots are dancing, a sign that one must just wait. The poet actually personifies the typing indicator on a digital messaging app. By describing those 3 little dots as dancing, they perfectly capture that very modern, very human anxiety of staring at a screen, just waiting for a reply from someone you care about. We've all been there, right?
Finally, we reach Pagma Malavis, or hyperbole. Fun fact, this was actually the most frequently used figure of speech identified in the entire study. Hyperbole is extreme, literally impossible exaggeration. Because sometimes literal words and strict dictionary facts just aren't big enough to contain the sheer size of human emotions.
And this brilliantly illustrates that exact concept. Because of my overflowing love, I offer you buckets of tears. Literally, impossible. You can't cry buckets. But emotionally, it captures a level of grief, devotion, and exhaustion that completely defies logic. The exaggeration is the whole point. It forces the audience to feel the immense weight of the poet's sorrow.
Let's wrap up with Section 6, Themes of Poetry.
Okay, so we know the linguistic tools, but what are the artists actually talking about up on stage? Well, the researchers categorized the 51 spoken word pieces and found 7 core recurring themes. They are love, justice, hope, literature, nature, language, and illness. Just looking at this list, you can really see the vast, incredible spectrum of the human experience that spoken word artists are trying to capture. It literally ranges from deeply intimate personal heartbreak all the way up to grand societal observations.
And speaking of societal observations, the study noted that artists frequently use spoken word to reflect on massive, systemic issues like justice and human rights. Remember earlier when we talked about facts versus opinions? This is where it all comes together. The artists take their deeply held opinions and personal perspectives on societal justice, and through the careful use of structure and metaphor, they turn those opinions into powerful observational art. They aren't just reading us an essay, they are creating emotional experiences to neutrally yet powerfully convey their worldview.
So we've seen how standard grammar, text structures, and dictionary word definitions are really just the raw materials. In the hands of a spoken word poet, those academic foundations are bent, stretched, and transformed through figures of speech to deliver unforgettable human emotion. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought. Understanding the rules of language gives you the power to break them beautifully. How will you use your own words, your facts, and your deepest opinions to craft a story that only you can tell? Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep exploring.